Okay, so welcome to LegalBlock Activity 5. This is the second part. This is not a Q&A session. This is a demo with OpenLaw, where today with Michael and Kirsten. So it's your turn, guys. Your demo, welcome.
Yeah, great, thank you. So I'm Michael Rice, I'm with OpenLaw. I'm an attorney in California and a software engineer, so we kind of put the words together and just call it a legal engineer. That's my title here at OpenLaw. I guess, Kirsten, we did intros on the last session, but I guess for the benefit of people who haven't seen the previous version, can you give an intro real quick?
Yeah, so my name is Kirsten, Albers-Fiedler. Thank you all for having us join today. I'm also an attorney and I work in legal engineering at OpenLaw.
Great. So for context, so we had some communication. Well, I should back up a little bit for the benefit of anybody who hasn't seen the prior demo. I would recommend you do that because we've got some pretty good slide presentations on what OpenLaw is generally, what we're trying to accomplish. But in short, we are a platform for creating legal agreements. You can mark them up using a really interesting markup language that we'll demonstrate today. It has a signature platform, so you can e-sign with different parties, the agreements you create. And then it does have contract management features. And one of its most interesting features is that it's deeply integrated with the blockchain. So right now we run on the Ethereum blockchain, but we're set up for supporting any blockchain that has a smart contract capability, because once you integrate with a blockchain the way we have, you can not only capture the evidence of the signatures on the blockchain, but also interact with smart contracts to take your legal agreements further than you can with just the traditional paper signatures. So we won't talk too much. What we'll do is get going on this. I do have a quick question for, I guess, whoever from the LegalBlock community. The conversations we've had leading up to today were to look at two different agreements. One was an attorney retainer agreement, which I think is a great model for it. And the other one was, I think, a consulting agreement. And I was curious, just so I can help understand what to demonstrate for this community, what was it about those two agreements that you thought would be interesting to review, as opposed to, say, a different agreement, like a leasing agreement or something else? If you don't mind me flipping the question back to you guys.
I think Dimitri can explain, if may I, because the consultant agreement is very interesting because it's a proposal, because it's international. And there's a couple of points that Dimitri points out in the Slack that why that agreement. I don't know if you want to remember that, Dimitri?
Yes, the point was that the model contract agreement is too complicated for a first time.
Okay.
And the retain agreement is just quite simple to be shown for the first jump, you know. And the model contract is better for further.
Okay. To go further with?
To go further, yeah.
Okay. Good. That's helpful for me.
But the idea just to give you a little another point. I mean, we are focused in the future to work in our proposal and consultant agreement in LegalBlock. Okay, but the first step is just to understand how to do it, how to handle it, how can we start the process. I mean, and we decide to find this Dimitri PS. I think that's pretty good because it's an international. It's for United Nations works. The people that work as a consultant with the United Nations for the development program, but the other is a simple agreement for lawyer. No? I mean, a retainer. But our aim, our idea is just at this step, just to know the first point, plus all the wonderful demos that you have in your page and your site and in the web.
Oh, thank you for the plug. Yep. I would say maybe before we get started, so I'll show you the demo live. We'll go through it. And doing a live demo is always interesting because it invites all kinds of opportunity for issues to come up. But we do have quite a number of demonstrations publicly available that you can review that show more capability and some of the interesting ways we're kind of pushing the envelope in terms of what's capable with the blockchain and legal interactions. So let me share my screen here. And I will share, let's make sure this works. Good. It might be blocking a little bit here. Okay, how's that look? Can you see my screen? Any one person could say yes? I got
yes.
Thumbs up? Good. Great. So this is our public website, so anybody can come access it. You can sign up online. You can ask about private instances for those that don't want to do things publicly like we're just about to do. It has we've just remodeled this, so it's pretty exciting to see how you can interact with OpenLaw broadly. But let's just dive in, and I will go ahead and log in with my personal account. I actually don't have my consensus account here yet. Let me get my password. Okay. So we're going to log in. Now, this is your dashboard once you log in. So you can see some of our demonstrations from the community and the stuff we've put together, some example agreements, and lots of documentation on the markup language. So we'll go over that in a second. Right now, you can see that we have quite a number of agreements online, and we are adding more quickly. We have a new document review tool that maybe, I don't know, Kirsten, maybe you're capable of demonstrating it. If not, we can send a link to the community, but it's pretty exciting. We're ingesting thousands of documents, and we're asking the community to review them and make them publicly available so anybody in the world can use them. So we're hoping to inspire some interest here from this community. So let's go ahead, and we're probably not going to find the exact retainer agreement we want. Sure enough, there's not one. So let's go ahead and create a new agreement. What I'm going to do, let me make sure that I've got I had a Word version of the retainer agreement created. We thought the retainer agreement, we agreed with you, that's probably the easiest one to get started with. Good. Let me upload it. So we'll start, you can start with a Word document if you like, which I think is probably a good starting point for most attorneys who already have something going. But you can also create a brand new one from scratch. Let's go ahead and upload this. And there we go. Let me see. Can you see if I put the agreement on the screen? Let's see. Did I just block the browser, or can you see the old agreement?
It's working, Michael.
It is. So you can see the retainer for. Okay. So this was the original agreement that was sent to us. So it has a little bit of formatting, like some tabs. You know, it looks like a traditional professional attorney's document. But mostly it's got bolds and some paragraphs, so pretty straightforward. And you can see after we uploaded it, it created a pretty reasonable facsimile of it, right? A pretty reasonable copy. But it definitely needs a little bit of work. So now what we'll do is we'll dive in and start using the markup language. Let me go ahead and clean this up just a little bit. You can watch me do this live. Kirsten, do you have an account on OpenLaw, on the public one?
Yes, I do.
Because it might be interesting that we could sign it together, right?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Okay. Okay. The extra spaces just drive me insane, so.
So for those of you who are watching, I'm just going to put the markup language link in the chat, and that kind of explains all of kind of how you mark up a document as well.
Yep, absolutely. So let's take a look at the way it was. So the way normally with this kind of document, right, the normal workflow for a lawyer would be or for anybody using a contract, would be to get a copy of it in like Microsoft Word or some kind of word processing software. They would likely print it out and fill in the blanks, or they would take the Word document and manually change things like the attorney's name, the client's name, write up a description of the services, the fees, etc. So the idea here is, rather than do that, let's have a more efficient workflow and create a template where we can actually just fill in the blanks, leave the standard language in place, and be able to send the document back and forth between the parties. And that's what the markup language is going to let us do. So the first thing we're going to notice, and what I'll do is I'll put up the, oops, my mistake. The document site as well, so we can see the markup language details. So the first thing we're going to notice is we probably want to change, we're probably happy with this. You notice it says centered, so it's going to center this text. Oh, I should back up too. This markup is based on the kind of markup language that you would use on Wikipedia. It's called a markdown language. So it's a way of describing how it should appear when it renders on a browser or on a PDF file. But you do it using normal text. So you don't have to use the kind of formatting like you would in Microsoft Word. So you can see here, it actually helps us a little bit. You can see that it's bold. It makes the retainer for agreement pop out a little bit. We've added this instruction about centering, and all of this can be explained here. So we can see simple instructions on how to bold, how to center, how to make page breaks, etc. So you have quite a powerful set of formatting capabilities. But this is a fairly straightforward document, so we'll leave it pretty clean. Let's see if I can think of anything. We'll take out the numbers here because it's already numbered. Let's see how our document's taking shape. I'm trying to clean up some of the formatting issues here. Let's take a look at how we're shaping up. So it's starting to look better. But now what we want to do is actually bring this thing to life, right? We need to be able to actually get an attorney name in here and a client name, and you obviously can't do that right now. It's not supporting that capability. So we're going to start using something called variables. So for those who are technically minded, the word variable probably has quite a bit of meaning. But what we're going to do is say we want it to take effect on a certain date, right? So we're going to say, let's say it's the effective date. And let's take a look at how we do this. We want it to be a date field, right? We don't want to just have free form text. So let's see, I think it describes here. So here's a description of dates. Let's go back and forth here. So we're going to add a variable that says effective date. Actually, let's show you what that looks like now. Good. Now we have a template that's a little bit different, right? It has, you can see the effective date now pops out in blue, so you can easily see that something is different. And now you could type in, what's today, October 12, 2018, I think. Let's see, is it? Already the 12th, can you believe it? But look, it's not quite right? I've like the dates, I mean, I definitely freehanded it and we're able to enter it here, but it's just not quite a date format. So let's change it to a date type of field. So this is going to constrain the type of data that can go in there and restrict it to a date format. Watch this. So now it pops up a selection box. So I think that's pretty cool. So it's much stronger in terms of how you can control what the data that's going in there. But we're already 18 minutes in, so let's speed up a little bit. Let's change it to attorney name. And the variables, you'll notice, were demarcated with this double bracket. So I'll say client name. Services. And the amount per hour. Now this one's going to be numeric, right? So let's make sure we put in a numeric value so we don't accidentally put in a, let's take a look here. I'm kind of scrolling through this just so you can see the different versions. So we can say we want it to be a number. You'll notice in the language you can actually have constraints. So I might say I only want my hourly fee to be over a certain amount or not below a certain amount, right? So you can put in some constraints there. Very powerful markup language, lots to explore there. And if you engage with us on our OpenLaw community Slack, we'll be happy to walk you through some of that. So let's put in the attorney, let's put in a signature block now. Attorney. And what we'll do is we'll sign with our email address. Attorney email. Make it an email type. And this is actually going to be a signature. So you can see we're adding a little bit of magic stuff to the fields down here because these are going to be special. These are going to be ways of proving the signature. We'll switch to client here. Okay. Looking good. Variable email, test type email. Okay, let's declare up here. Sometimes you need to, it's good for you to see some of the issues that come up sometimes. Let's declare, you can declare your types ahead of time and actually format it. So,
So I could just, for the type of, like for the email type, when you type in at the bottom, like in the signature block, so attorney email, like you can type in like attorney signatory email and then just like, where it says signature, like you can put identity, and we're basically, we're using email addresses right now as identities for the parties involved. So when we, when Michael finishes the agreement and then it sends out those, it will be sent to, I guess he'll put in my email address and then I'll get an email as well from it.
Let's take a look at where we are right now. So I'll come back to this. Kirsten, can you take a look and see what I'm doing wrong with this guy? Let's show where we are though. So we've got, now we can put in the attorney's name. So I can put in my name. I can put in Kirsten's name. I'll just put first names just to make it easy. Legal services provide advice on legal issues. We'll say I'm cheap, $100 an hour. So now I can sign it and send it. Oh, nope. I got to add the identity variable, right? Let's do that.
What are you trying to say? Like, you also like they maintain it for you.
Let's try with just the name.
Yeah. More than they rent. I get that. Right.
So Michael, I think if you just add email at the bottom there, it should show attorney email and then put a line and then identity instead of the colon.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. There we go. I work mostly on the smart contract side. Oh. Now let's sign it. Let's do this again. So now I'll put in my email address. Kirsten, are you on it?
Yes, so it's my full name, Kirsten.Albers-Fiedler.
Is it like that?
Yes, or F-I-E-D-L-E-R. And then at consensus. Yes, perfect. At consensus.
Good.
Awesome.
All right, let's sign and send it. So what we'll do now is we can see we've actually marked up an agreement. Oh, I forgot to put in the state, but we could go back and fix that. It's between myself as the attorney and Kirsten as the client. Same data that we put in here, and for $100 per hour. So now let's sign and send it. Yeah, this is what I was confused by before. if we do, let's declare these as identity. Let's flip over here and figure out what we're doing wrong. Identity and signatures. Signatory email, identity.
You need the first name there?
Attorney email. This should be good. Let's see. Okay, let's try this again. Kirsten, do you have any ideas here?
The other one was talking about the parties. I don't. That's not on what you're doing now.
That's
you
true.
got client email, but the other one says party. I noticed. Didn't say client.
Client email.
What was the error that came up when you tried to send it? Sorry, Michael.
Yeah, I mean it's a it's definitely an issue with the way we wrote this up. Let's see. So if I sign this now, you must include an identity variable to the template. I just did an almost identical version of this. Let's take a look just to move forward. Let's take a look. You can see the activity too. It's pretty cool. You can see what other people are using. So let's switch over to my agreements. I'm happy to go over the half hour too, so I have plenty of time. So you can see there's quite a bit of activity on the platform. So this is another agreement I had with the same thing. Let's take a look at what worked on that one. So this was a novation agreement. So we have the date and we have the emails as identity. And a novation agreement basically replaces parties. And then we had identity and signature. Oh, maybe that's what I was missing here. So let's try this one. I don't know, what do you think, Kirsten? Should we try this one or should we try to fix the other one? So I think what we need is this. Let's just go back and fix our other agreement. Go back to our retainer. Oh, we have a little typo here too. Okay, let's try this guy. Shoot. All right, let's put in today's date. Kirsten. There we go, my mistake. So what we've done is now when I've sent it, I've actually signed the agreement. We're changing the signing process a little bit. So right now it used OpenLaw to initiate the signature. In the future, you'll actually be able to use like MetaMask or some of the used blockchain technology to do the signature itself. So you can see that we have a copy. It took our template with our markup language, put in the right dates, put in my name, Kirsten's name is the client, and our services and fees. And let's take a look at what the status of this is. So now we have a contract management, a contract management page. You can see the signature being recorded on the blockchain. Etherscan is a pretty convenient tool for exploring the blockchain. If you guys haven't really explored it before, it's pretty fun. I'd highly recommend it. You can see that you recorded this transaction from this account, which is our OpenLaw account, to the smart contract that we have that verifies signatures. And that we're waiting for Kirsten to go in and sign this as well. Kirsten, are you able to do that?
Yeah, I'm looking. I'm just
Like
refreshing my email.
I might have missed. Did I put your wrong email?
Yeah, you did a little. It's okay.
Sorry.
There's an R in there, but it's okay.
You have such a complicated. Where are your parents? I got to talk to them. I'm just kidding.
I don't know what they were thinking. They gave me both of their last names.
They're like, we both wanted to give you the name. So it's a pretty cool platform. We're just showing you, like I said, the kind of tip of the iceberg with the markup language. You can see that the markup language has some simple pieces and it has some complicated pieces. And you saw us bump into some of those complexities. But the documentation is, I think, very good, very rich. It actually, had we taken the time, we actually have a video demo that shows you how to get the signature identities right. So don't take my inexperience with actually doing the markup language as an indication of how hard this is to do. It's actually pretty simple and powerful. So you can even put in like conditional language where only certain pieces of the contract will show up based on different groupings and options. You can integrate with smart contracts, and you can even make much more complicated agreements that consist of multiple documents, multiple parties. You can really do some very powerful stuff with this. So we just hit like 30 minutes. Kirsten, do you have anything you want to add to this demo at this point?
There are a few other things that I think if you all are kind of beginning to look into like starting a template, I can share my screen and just kind of go through. I just have to open up an app and I can just show you a little bit.
Well, she's doing that. I guess, are there any questions? I mean, I know this isn't a Q&A format, but you can feel a little airtime. You can put them in the chat too if you want.
Yeah, let's just use the chat for any question.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a matter of practice. I mean, I think that every time that you're practicing and putting attention in all the steps that you have to follow, it is very simple. I mean, it's pretty cool. Yep. It's great.
Yeah.
Too.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty useful. One thing I should probably go back and show real quick here is in the agreement. Let's go back to. Wow, people are using it while we're going. You can actually see different versions as we've changed it too. So you can see all the different versions and permutations that I've made in here. You can see the changes. This is useful if you're kind of collaborating with another attorney to get the document just right. And also because it's all, at least on this version of it, it's all public. So, you know, as different people come in and use it, look at this retainer agreement, they may have suggestions and changes they want to make to it based on, you know, how they think it should operate. And I'm showing you this down here. Maybe like changing the operative language. So we can kind of collaborate as a legal community and as a bunch of lawyers spread across the globe to make these things better and better. So I invite you to go in and dive in and play around. Like I said, there's a million different agreements in there that, not a million, but lots, that are kind of ripe for doing this kind of work. So you can click into anybody's agreement here and you can see different ways that they've structured it. So this advisor agreement has been structured in a pretty complicated way, which is pretty neat. So it looks like it varies depending on how you want to interact with it. So I would welcome you to come in and play. We'll take a look at this. Kirsten, are you ready?
Yeah, if you want to stop sharing your screen, I can.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
Share mine and just show you a few things.
Okay.
I have a question about the private instance.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in the private instance, you see all the other agreements, but no one can see yours. How does it work?
Yeah, no, so that's a great question. So, you know, as I said, we really want the community to get in and work on public documents and share. But obviously many law firms and corporations and various organizations are not, that wouldn't work very well for your model. So we do offer private instances, and those agreements are kept separately from the public ones.
Okay, so just in terms of when you're going through to mark it up, we recommend that in the beginning of the agreement, so like you can see that you have here, like if you just put a little mark and then put center, this will center that agreement for professional services. But if you look throughout the agreement, like you have the client name and then, or like here it says describe company services, or you have for invoicing, number of days to pay invoice, or like the % finance charge. So we recommend just adding kind of a little block in the beginning that has information to kind of separate out to make the agreement easier to automate. So for example, when whatever you put in between these equal signs will come up on the agreement. So like where I was looking at services, and then you describe company services, and then you can have each of these kind of sectioned off into different sections to enable you to kind of fill out the agreement easier. I don't know if there's other specific things that I wanted to mention. And you can definitely, you can make this as long as you want, or make it a question, or however you're, however you want to do it. And then, as Michael mentioned, kind of with the date, when you're typing an address, this, if you put like just a colon address, it just enables you to, you can just type in whatever applicable address it would be, and we have a list, so then you can just click it. It just makes it easier to do that. What is really nice in the markup language is, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the chat.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to disturb.
No, it's okay.
It is annoying how Zoom does that.
So what's really nice, if you look at the choice option here, if you have multiple kind of variables that you want to lay out in a choice, you can, and I can just copy this just to show you. I really love this feature of it just because it's easy to do. So, sorry, my screen's a little crowded. So what I can just do is just start a new template, and I can show you. So when you do this, it will enable you to choose from a list, and then it comes up whatever, you can just fill in whatever information you want to in each of these spaces here. So that's really nice. And then if there's also a possibility of doing something called a conditional. So what you would do is you would just say like country and put in quotes a question. So you would say, what country? And then a question mark. And then you would just put equals, and then whatever applicable, or basically I think you should say like, who's the country? The USA, basically. And then it's basically a yes/no conditional. So is the country the USA? And then it would just come up with whatever information you put there. So it's basically what you're asking is them to say yes to the question, and then the result will be whatever the answer is to yes. So yeah, so this is really useful just if you have like more complicated things in an agreement that you don't want to just put in on just like a little phrase, that you can make it a little more easy for people to fill in the applicable provisions. And Michael didn't mention, or I don't know, maybe I got my Zoom crash again, but the agreements themselves, and when those agreements, he did mention on Etherscan, you can see the hash, but the state of whatever agreement you sign is actually hashed on the blockchain as well.
That's right. Yep.
So yeah, if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer as well.
Our thinking with the markup language is that, so I showed you the really simple features. Kirsten was showing you some of the more advanced features. Our theory is that, you know, a lot of doing this kind of work could be simple or it could be hard. And we think we have a platform that gets you started with simple stuff very quickly. And then as you want to get more and more complex and do some more legal engineering without actually writing real code, you can get in there and start playing with this markup language and really doing some some pretty interesting and innovative stuff. So you can go further and further with it as far as you want, all the way up to the point where you can start writing smart contracts and then integrating with the smart contracts right from the platform.
I got a question, may I?
Sure.
Michael, is there any training contract to train all the variables one by one? To give me an opportunity to have a sparring with your platform to train it.
So I'm not sure if I understand the question, but let's see if I can address it. We've created, I wish we had this demo ready to go, so maybe we'll do this if you want with once you get into the community, but we have a document review tool that we just released, and it's available on Medium. And what it does is it ingests, like, let's say you've got a fairly long, complicated agreement, like you might commonly see, where the party name shows up quite often. I think your question is it possible to search and replace all over the place, or something more convenient?
No. Much more simpler. You have a manual of variables, okay, and there are much of them. And if there any contract on which I can try one by one every variable, so from the simplest to the more complicated and further.
That's a great question. That should be a nice feature. So I think what you're saying is like a contract that you can just take a look at and see the full capabilities exposed right there on the contract, right? Yeah, that's a great idea. Kirsten, I don't think we have that, do we? Have you seen that?
We don't have a contract that shows that, but if you look on the link that I put in the chat, it kind of goes through a little bit of, we have some videos and some of the markup language is there. So if you would take some of that and put it into a template, you'd be able to look at the draft and see how that looks. But I think what you're asking for is kind of like a finished agreement from start to end that has like every capability. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like a tutorial contract. So it's not a real legal contract, but it would just be something that demonstrates the capabilities. It's kind of interesting. It's a good idea. It's a very good idea.
That's right. I think it can help onboarding new people to your platform.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We should do that. But to finish my other thought, that I still do want to. We should once we get that document review tool. It's available right now, and you can learn more about it. But the idea is you can dive in there, and it takes an agreement that might have been like in a filing or public filing, and it speeds up the process of doing the markup. So it's pretty cool. So I would highly recommend you look at it. And it's something we're trying to implement more and more.
Great.
Any other question for Michael or Kirsten? Okay. So next step here. Thank you very much, guys, for the demo. We need to keep studying this. It's not just like, oh, we had the OpenLaw guys here. Great. We already see this. Let's start playing with it because we will need it. Actually, next step for us, we need to create the agreement, the private agreement for LegalBlock members for the proposals. More on the proposals later, how it works. But the idea is try to get this done on OpenLaw. Okay, the same agreement we're going to have for services or whatever we explain later. Try to get that proposal backed by a legal agreement. Like if it's in a paper, same thing, but try to do that. The only way for adoption for us is doing. Developers always say that the problem with us is that we do, we don't talk. That's the gap when it's, technology is faster. So I think for us, we need to start, playing, doing, and we have a great opportunity right now to have Michael and Kirsten with us, one-on-one, showing us what they have done. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks for the time. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Okay,
thank
bye.
you. Bye.